I've listened to all your statements, each one of them, and I'm truly sorry to every one of her. Thank you, Your Honor.
April 24th, 2018. Citrus Heights, California. A quiet street in a quiet suburb of Sacramento. On one of those porches sits a 72-year-old man. Retired, a grandfather. His neighbors call him Joe. He rides a bike. He goes fishing. He complains about barking dogs. Police are watching him. 6 days earlier, detectives had covertly collected his DNA from the door handle of his car. They ran it against biological material recovered from crime scenes stretching back to 1974. It matched. They walk up to the porch. They put him in handcuffs. His name is Joseph James DeAngelo. For over 4 decades, badge, family, pension, retirement, he had lived among ordinary people as one of the most wanted, unidentified criminals in American history. Drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from, because the method that finally caught this man changed criminal investigation permanently, and I want to know who's here for it. Before we go any further, this video covers a real case involving violent crime and sexual assault. Some details may be distressing. Please watch at your own discretion. 13 murders, more than 50 rapes, 6 counties across California, 44 years without a name. He almost got away with all of it. Joseph James DeAngelo was born in 1945 in Bath, New York. He served in the Navy. He came home decorated. He earned a degree in criminal justice, and in 1973 joined the Exeter Police Department in California. He moved to the Auburn Police Department in 1976. 3 years later, he was fired. Not for anything dramatic. He was caught shoplifting a hammer and a can of dog repellent from a drugstore in Citrus Heights. The badge was gone. He spent the next 27 years as a truck mechanic at a grocery distribution center in Roseville. He retired in 2017. His neighbors had 2 versions of him. One knew a quiet, unremarkable old man. Another received a phone message in which DeAngelo threatened to deliver a load of death because of a barking dog. His brother-in-law later recalled that during the years the East Area Rapist was making headlines across Sacramento, DeAngelo would bring the case up in conversation, casually, unprompted. Then there were the people his crimes left behind. Charlene Smith was 33 years old, an interior decorator living in Ventura, California. Her husband, Lyman, was an attorney being considered for appointment to the Superior Court bench. In March 1980, their 12-year-old son, Gary, came home and found them both dead. Janelle Cruz was 18. Her sister, Michelle, described her as a free spirit, a backbone, the kind of person who stood up for you. She was murdered in Irvine in 1986, 18 years old. These were the people on the other side of what he did, and there were 13 of them. He was a former cop. He knew how investigators thought, how they gathered evidence, what they looked for. And for over a decade, he used every bit of that knowledge to stay invisible. It started with break-ins. Between 1974 and 1975, a burglar worked his way through the Visalia area of Central California. He hit more than 100 homes. He took small items. He left valuables behind. He scattered women's underwear through the rooms. Methodical, and at the time, nobody connected it to anything. In September 1975, the same man shot and killed a college professor named Claude Snelling outside his Visalia home. Snelling had come out to stop an abduction in progress. His own teenage daughter dragged from the house at gunpoint. When he intervened, he was shot dead. The attacker fled. At the time, DeAngelo was an active police officer in Exeter, 10 miles away. By 1976, a different name was appearing in Sacramento area reports. The East Area Rapist. He targeted single women in single-story homes near easy escape routes. He broke in beforehand. He pre-placed ligatures. He unloaded any guns he found and unlocked windows before his victims came home. When couples were present, he bound the man face down and stacked dishes on his back. If he heard them rattle, he said, everyone in the house would die. By 1979, the Sacramento attacks stopped. In Southern California, the pattern shifted. Couples targeted in their homes in Goleta, Ventura, Dana Point. Victims bludgeoned rather than left alive. The same ligature style, the same shoe size, a distinctive diamond knot tied around the wrists, a detail that would eventually link these murders to the earlier rapes. But that connection was still decades away. 3 names, 3 jurisdictions, 3 separate investigations that never spoke to each other. Each agency assumed it was hunting a different man. In 1986, it stopped No further attacks, no further victims. He was 40 years old. Without DNA technology, this is where the story ends. The cases go cold. He goes home, and nobody ever knows his name. For 15 years after the last murder, the cases sat in evidence rooms across California. Detectives retired, leads dried up, victims waited. In 2001, DNA testing confirmed what investigators had long suspected, but never been able to prove. The East Area rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same man. One perpetrator, decades of crimes, still no name. In 2016, law enforcement held a national press conference. New composite sketches, a $50,000 reward, a public appeal for help. Nothing came of it. By December 2017, a detective named Paul Holes was working the case with renewed urgency, alongside an FBI lawyer. Together, they decided to try something that had never been used to solve a case like this. Forensic genetic genealogy. The killer had left DNA at crime scenes. If any relative of his had ever submitted their DNA to a public genealogy database, there would be a partial match. And a partial match meant a family tree. A family tree meant a name. Investigators took a DNA profile from a rape kit preserved from a Ventura County crime scene. They uploaded it to GED Match, a public genealogy website with around 650,000 profiles. The site returned 10 to 20 distant relatives, people who shared the same great-great-great-grandparents as the killer, connections stretching back to the 1800s. A team of 5 investigators worked with genealogist Barbara Ray Venter to construct approximately 25 family trees. The largest contained around 1,000 people. Then they started eliminating wrong age, wrong sex, wrong location. One by one, names came off the list. 2 suspects remained. A relative's DNA ruled out the first. One name was left, Joseph James DeAngelo, retired, living in Citrus Heights, Sacramento. They put him under surveillance. Over 6 days, they collected 2 DNA samples. One from the door handle of his car, one from a tissue taken from his curbside rubbish. Both matched biological material recovered from crime scenes committed between 1974 and 1986. On April 24, 2018, they walked up to his porch and put him in handcuffs. He said nothing. On June 29, 2020, Joseph James DeAngelo appeared in court and pleaded guilty to 13 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of kidnapping. As part of the plea agreement, the uncharged rapes were read into the record in explicit detail. The death penalty was taken off the table. He would die in prison. 3 days of victim impact statements followed in August. Dozens of survivors and family members spoke. DeAngelo sat in a wheelchair, masked, and turned away from most of them. Jennifer Carroll was 18 years old when her father Lyman was murdered. She stood before the court and addressed DeAngelo directly. "Joe spending the rest of his life in prison is not justice," she said. "Justice is not possible in this case." Jane Carson Sandler was raped in 1976 while her young son was in the home with her. "I was frozen in fear beyond description," she told the court. A woman who as a 7-year-old child had been bound while DeAngelo attacked her mother said he was proof that monsters were real, that she had met the boogeyman. On August 21, 2020, DeAngelo stood. He removed his mask and spoke. "I've listened to all your statements, each one of them, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I have hurt."
Anticipated that you will receive 11 consecutive life without the possibility of parole sentences with 15 concurrent life sentences. Additional time for weapon enhancements will be imposed as mandated by law. Do you understand that as well, sir?
Yes.
He was sentenced to 11 consecutive life terms with no possibility of parole. The case was solved, the sentence was handed down. But for the families who had spent decades without a name, who had grown older while the cases sat cold, the question that remained was simpler and harder than any verdict. What did those lost years cost them? Janelle Cruz, 18 years old, Irvine, California, 1986. She was the last person he killed. Her sister Michelle described her as a free spirit, someone with a big heart, the kind of person who stood up for you when you needed it. "She was sort of my backbone," Michelle said. After Janelle died, her family left Irvine. They never went back. She was 18. The last name on a list that should never have existed. Since his arrest, more than 150 additional suspects in other investigations have been identified using the same forensic genealogy method. The technique that started here is still being used. It is still finding people. But none of that gives back what was taken. 13 people killed. Dozens of survivors who rebuilt their lives around what he did to them. Families who spent 44 years without a name, who grew older while the cases sat cold, and he was, to everyone around him, simply nobody. Charlene Smith's closest friend stood in a courtroom in 2020 and said it had been a never-ending ache and sadness that does not go away. 44 years. That is what it cost. Janelle Cruz was 18 years old. A free spirit, a backbone. The person her sister leaned on. She was the last. And she deserved every year she never got.